Hello and welcome to a new interview from MinnMax. I'm Ben Hansen, and MinnMax is a Patreon about games, friends, and getting better. For this interview, we're talking to Adam Doherty and Dax Ginn from What Boy Games. They're developing a new game called Trials of Fire, which is a deck-building, roguelite, tactical RPG. And these two cut their teeth in the game industry at Rocksteady, spending a lot of time at Rocksteady Studios working on the Arkham series. Dax Ginn was the brand marketing producer going back to the end of Arkham Asylum. Adam Doherty was the gameplay code director, working his way up to becoming the game director for Suicide Squad before leaving Rocksteady to go on this whole new adventure. In this interview, we talk about forming a new studio, why they left Rocksteady, the process so far, the details of Trials of Fire, the benefits of early access. They also talk about their perspective on the launch of Cyberpunk 2077, since Arkham Knight also had a rocky launch, if you remember the PC version, and so they talk about what that has taught them about what the developers at CD Projekt Red must be going through, other comparisons there. It's an interesting discussion, it's wide-ranging, and we hope you enjoy the interview. If you want to unlock the podcast version of this interview, as well as podcast versions of The Deepest Dive, our ongoing Game Club series, or early access to the MinnMax show, audio versions of Max Spoilers, you can support us on Patreon at patreon.com/MinnMax with 2 N's. We'd love your support, and we appreciate it when you help support independent games media. Without further ado, here is Dax and Adam. Adam and Dax, welcome to MinnMax, guys.
Hey.
Hi there.
Nice to have us. Yeah, it's been a while. Let's see. I'm trying to recall the history here. So I visited Rocksteady for the Arkham Knight cover story trip with Game Informer in early 2014 and spent a lot of time with you in particular, Dax.
Yeah. Was that when like we had the Game Informer cover and it was like printed out massive in the kind of kitchen area of the studio?
That's right.
That was that one. Okay.
Yes, that was amazing. And also a couple of life-changing moments there. First of all, the game looked great. The game ended up being great, so congratulations. But maybe more importantly, Dax, you had a couple just small nudges that really shaped my life in a significant way. One of them, yeah, genuinely. Well, you know, don't hype it up too much ahead of time.
I have this effect on people so rarely. I gotta know all of the details.
Look, it'll be underwhelming when I tell you what it is. But one of them was you were talking about Punch Drunk and a play called The Drowned Man that was happening in London, and you were like, you are just gonna go, like, just go to this theater performance. Don't Google anything. Don't look up how it works. It's going to be weird. That's all I can tell you. Just go and stand in line. And so we did it and saw the performance in London of The Drowned Man. Genuinely one of the most amazing artistic experiences of my life. If you don't know, it's interactive theater. The whole concept of interactive theater was completely new to me. And they just took over a warehouse in London that was like 5 stories tall, and it was all just a play about this old movie studio. So each floor of the warehouse was like a different set. Like the top floor, I remember, was like about a movie that was being filmed supposedly on Mars, and so they just hauled in truckloads of sand for the top floor of this warehouse. It blew my freaking mind.
To this day, that is still the most profoundly excellent creative thing I have ever experienced. Nothing has beaten the Drowned Man performance. So I'm so stoked you saw that. That's awesome.
You obviously saved these nuggets for the VIPs, though. Where was my ticket?
Yeah, whoops.
But the other one was a little bit easier. But I remember playing Avalon with you, the tabletop game. You were a big fan of Avalon. Yeah. And then going back to Game Informer, every batch of interns, I ended up playing Avalon with them. I invited them over to my house and we'd make them play Avalon. You know, it was a good time, but it was like dozens and dozens of interns of playing this, you know, a social deception game, Avalon. Yeah. So it's a real fun thing. So thank you for those 2 recommendations, man.
Hey, man. I gotcha. Anytime you want.
But obviously, it's been a long time, 6-7 years, good God. So your life has changed a fair amount. But yeah, Dax, do you want to start out just talking about leaving Rocksteady, why you left, where you went, and then the founding of What Boy Games here?
Yeah. You're right. It does feel like a long time ago. And you know, thinking back to something like The Drowned Man, which is a 5-story warehouse with 1,000 people just roaming around it, doing whatever they were, like, that seems unthinkable in this day and age, right? Can you imagine doing that? How things have changed. So after Arkham Knight, my focus then switched to Batman Arkham VR, which came out in 2016. So Arkham Knight was 2015, Arkham VR 2016. And then Once that had wrapped up, and we were already talking about that being the end of the line for Rocksteady and Batman, I was starting to think, look, I've been here since the end of Arkham Asylum. Now's the time to do something different, if I'm going to do something different at all, before the studio then gets, up to its knees in whatever it does next. So I was thinking about working a bit close to home, because I was traveling from Brighton, where I live on the south coast of the UK, up to North London every day. So I wanted to be a bit more in control of my personal life and my home life and my work life. So I left at the beginning of 2017 and started doing some consultancy for a few other studios around the place. And it was GDC that year that I was catching up with some of the Rocksteady guys, and I heard that Adam was thinking of leaving Rocksteady as well. So I got on the first plane back to London, and not that I needed to get back to London to send him an email. I don't know why that bit was important.
Just felt like a gesture.
Yeah, I just like, I've got to. This has got to get there really fast. And so I said, look, this is what I've heard. Is it true? And if so, we should meet up. So that's the end of my bit of the tale. Yeah.
Well, before we dive into Adam's portion, what was it about Adam that sparked in you that you're like, okay, he's the guy. He's a great partner to have in this indie venture.
Just look at him.
Winning smile.
I was
just
look
at him. Yeah. It's like anyone who's worked in a development team, particularly a big development team, knows that if you've got, 150, 250, 500 people, everyone is working like crazy, but there are 2 or 3 people who just bring the whole thing together. And even though I was working on the marketing and PR and community side at Rocksteady, watching the development team of between, I think it was 200, 250 people at the end of Arkham Knight.
Yeah, nearly.
Adam was the guy. He was the Steve Jobs who was bringing it all together. Everything went through him. And it always astounded me that in that tiny brain of his, he could hold it all. He could keep it all there. This immense game of scale and complexity, it could somehow all just sort of sit in his brain at the same time. So,
thank you, Dax.
Yeah, no, man. So that always struck me as like, that dude is seriously talented. So the idea of the two of us teaming up to do something small is like, well, he could do that in his sleep. I mean, he's shown that he can do the epic stuff. But yeah, the prospect of just the two of us doing what we love, Adam creating amazing design and gameplay and execution, me focusing on community and getting the word out there and building a studio around his concepts. Like that sounds like I want to do what I want to do right now in my life. So that's what really flicked my switch.
Yeah, Adam, that must be nice to hear. What was your title by the time you left Rocksteady? Like, what were just the hive mind of all production? What is this thing?
My last I was game director on well, I guess it is announced now.
The Suicide Squad, yeah.
Yes. Suicide Squad. It's all right. I never quite remember what's been announced, what hasn't. So I worked as kind of lead gameplay code director on Arkham Knight, and then onto prototyping what turned into Suicide Squad. After that,
gameplay code director is not a title I hear too often. Is that a specific Rocksteady thing, or am I just out of the loop?
Yeah, it's. I think they made it up for me. It's actually, that's actually what happened.
Does it feel like a leap then to step up to just proper game director for the beginnings of Suicide Squad?
Well, I mean, it was. It was a bit of a leap. I said just kind of going from being in charge of like the gameplay. I don't know how you work, how much you know about how Rocksteady works, but we didn't have kind of a lot of specific gameplay designers. So the coders, along with Sefton, who's an amazing creative director, we all had to we basically designed the game together, sort of working directly with the systems, iterating stuff. So it was maybe not as big a leap as you might think because of how things worked at Rocksteady.
Right. Why decide to leave?
Well, I mean, so sort of a similar reason to what Dax said, really. I mean, I'd worked at, I joined Rocksteady. It was actually a stroke of amazing fortune. I'd actually joined the day they announced they were working on Arkham Asylum.
Oh, wow.
So I was in right at the beginning of that game. I managed to sort of carve myself out a niche, but so we worked on the Arkham games, I believe, for about eight and a half years, up until the end of Arkham Knight. And in that time, I was kind of towards the end of that time, I was looking to move on to do other things, to work on something of my own design. And really, what happened was that kind of desire went in through to develop the next project, and I really felt that it's something I wanted to do now, rather than kind of wait until the next franchise was completed.
Right. So Suicide Squad is building up and you're excited to be working on that, but always just growing in the back of your mind. It's like, I don't know if I'm up for this. And it was just a feeling of guilt that you couldn't give it your all, or?
No, not really guilt. I mean, more excitement to go and do something, do something that kind of was kind of concepted and designed, something that would have even more control over the direction. Additionally, the kind of my move into the kind of game director role in a big studio, I kind of had a lot less sort of hands-on coding, design, that kind of stuff. So I found myself missing that real sort of hands-on. I'm a massive control freak, as anyone who's worked with me will know. So I really wanted to, I kind of felt that this would be really what would suit my talents and what I really wanted to do with my life before I hit 40. And then I hit 40.
And then 40 passed by. So what is What Boy Games at this point? It's you two and contractors? Is there an office? Give me the lay of the land here.
There were two offices. You're looking at them.
Yeah. This is the official office tour happening right now.
Well, this is the Brighton office. This is our London office.
Stationary camera.
No, I mean, because, we started off small. We're working with contractors. I mean, as things have been in the last year or so, there hasn't been any kind of need or possibility to move into an office space. We're working on a small game with a small team, all working remotely. So yeah, the plan is to eventually meet up, join up, form sorts of big Voltron in the middle. But at the moment, we're all off in our own offices, working very closely through I'm sure the same stuff everyone else is these days, Slack, Teams, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So I'm trying to think of other, similar models to what you all have going here. And it's like, the studio behind Ori, Moon Studios, has a remote kind of feel and separation for the development. And then I think like Oddworld Soulstorm, they're mainly contractor focus of just, okay, focus on you for this part, focus on you for this part. So you all have a larger team, or is it more just contract piecemeal?
I mean, it's kind of a mixture of both. We have some contractors who have worked on the game a lot, doing like the 2D, 3D art, and some who have kind of worked on the project for much shorter time, like riggers, music, animation, that kind of stuff. So yeah, I mean, it's a kind of a mixture between myself, Dax. We have an illustrator who's full time working on all the cards, enemies, that kind of stuff, and then contractors as and when we need them.
Gotcha. Dax, how's it feel to go independent? Something you both wanted. Now you're on the other side of it. What's surprising? What do you feel?
I think the dominant feeling is that you can do whatever you want. And, we had a lot of independence and seniority at Rocksteady, but there was always the Warner Brothers and the DC Comics kind of layers on top of that. And while they were, awesome colleagues to work with, I mean, it's not very often you get to go for a meeting over in Burbank in California and you go to the DC offices, and it's just as awesome as you expect it to be. So there's massive upsides, and I'm not saying that I needed to break away from the shackles of that amazingness, but the reality when you start your own team and you start your own studio and you have a project underway is that it's on you to do everything, and that's the good stuff and the bad stuff. So a lot of the kind of elements of running a studio we were pretty comfortable with, but the additional elements of running a company, that's when it can get pretty crazy and sticky when it comes to kind of legal stuff and HR and contracts and just making sure everything is running and it's running as optimally as possible. So that stuff is hard graft to get through, but it's all worth it when we tend to put out updates every Friday, and so when an update lands and the community kind of engage and we get that feedback loop, which is what early access is all about, and you can see it working, and you can see players from all around the world taking an interest in what we're doing, playing Rapid Fire and giving
a child invasion,
that's really gratifying. And we never really got that at Rocksteady, because Rocksteady was very much a studio of, like, we've got an amazing talented group of people, we've got a great IP, let's just shut the lid and go underground for 4 years and then come out with something amazing. This way of working, where we're talking to the community and players all around the world every single day, is much more my style. I love shouting at people and having people shout at me. That's when I'm most happy. And working in this way, in this sort of indie world, where the opportunity
you must be loving the homeschooling.
Yeah, I don't love that kind of shouting. Jeez.
Yeah, it must be.
That's the stuff that really makes it all worthwhile, for sure.
Yeah, it's going to be nice to be in early access right now with Trials of Fire. And, I don't know how much of an impact it has on you, but it's nice just to have that path ahead of you for iteration, knowing, okay, this is the great way to get feedback, polish the game, change systems, move forward. And then last year, seeing an example like Hades being in early access for quite a while and eventually polishing its way up to Game of the Year for a lot of sites. And just a nice, test case of like, okay, if we just stay at it and listen to feedback in the right way, this is a perfect system.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, that's the biggest positive from working independently, is we've got basically a completely unfiltered access to our fans. It can be brutal sometimes, but it's really nice to have that, as Dak said, that kind of direct communication. Again, not to knock Rocksteady or Warner Brothers, but to kind of have no one sort of sitting above you, sort of filtering what you're saying, filtering the input or the output, but to really get to know the fans, to interact with them directly. Talk to people. Even had a calls with a couple of them. A couple of crazy hardcore fans.
Oh, really?
Wanted to have a chat about stuff.
Is that helpful?
Streaming and
yeah, it's great.
That's awesome. All right, take me back to the origins of the project. You decide you're going to start up this new studio, go independent. How many ideas were up on the whiteboard? What are you walking through? What are the options?
Just one.
One, really?
Yeah, I mean, this is an idea that's kind of been swimming around in my head since before we left. So it was kind of, I left in it was about 3 years ago now. Jesus Christ. Excuse me. It was in February 20, whatever that was, 2018.
2018, yeah.
Yeah, so, but I'd already been thinking about it for quite a while, so I went straight into prototyping before Dax even came on board. So when he kind of got in touch with me, I was kind of like, here's his prototype. What do you think? So Dax was kind of one of our very first playtesters.
Oh, interesting.
As well as our the first person to join and turn us into What Boy.
Yeah,
which is wild, right? I mean, so we meet up, and all I've got in my head is like, I am ready to do whatever it takes to work with Adam, because I know, what a spectacular superstar he is. And don't let this go to your head, man. But that at the time, we met up at a pub near his place, and that was my intention. And he says back to me, yeah, I've kind of got the game. I'll send you a build of it, but this is sort of what I'm thinking. So not only was it the opportunity to work together, the frickin' game was kind of done conceptually anyway. And so I went home. He sent me the build. I fired it up, and it's essentially what Trials of Fire is today, but just looking terrible, but playing really well. And before I started working in games, I studied law and went to law school and was thinking of, pursuing a career in IP and corporate law, and it was just full of images that Adam had just nicked off the internet for characters and enemies. That I was just like, then we're going to get in so much trouble for this. Like, we have to replace all of this artwork, and there was truckloads of it. So my first job was, we need an art team. So that was the very first thing I started doing. Like, we've got to find some good artists, both 2D and 3D, to replace all of this stuff.
Got to get these Incredibles characters out of here. I don't think that's going to fly in this day and age. So that's crazy. So while you were busting your ass working on Asylum and Suicide Squad, you were in your free time building up a prototype that you believed in so much you wanted to leave for it?
No, this was, I didn't start building it until after I left. So just ideas of stuff I wanted to work on. Because I've always been a sort of massive RPG fan. I love kind of systems, board games, tabletop, that kind of stuff. So this is an idea that's been sort of kicking around in my head for a while. A game I could make with a pretty small team that could be really polished. Something that I would enjoy to play, and hopefully, we seem to have a lot of people enjoy playing it. So that's great sort of validation. We only started building the prototype once I left Rocksteady. But yeah, it was a fairly quick turnaround because we've got using the Unreal Engine. I had tons of experience with that in previous projects, so I was able to just get stuff up and running super quick.
That's amazing. So the high-level pitch for this thing, Dax, deck building, tactical RPG, is that the best way to describe it? Do you have a fancier way of describing it? Deck builder, light RPG elements, roguelite, kind of Lord of the Rings set in the Mad Max world is the very first way that Adam kind of described it to me, and that's really held true over the years. That you're building together this party of kind of classic fantasy heroes, but the world that they inhabit is absolutely torched. And the way in which cards link into your items and equipment and weapons and loadout just all clips together beautifully. So it borrows a lot of ideas from deck building, but it innovates in the way that your cards are utilized in some really just spectacular way. Yeah, I was amazed that the name Trials of Fire was open and wasn't taken. It seems like one of those things that seems like it should have been a game from 20 years ago. How is that available?
Yeah. Well, the annoying thing is there's a lot of there's a lot of there's sort of mini games and subcategories within other games that are called, the Trial of Fire, or
right,
like that. So it's not as clean as it could be, but we were amazed when we settled on that. You kind of think, that's good, but it's never going to be available.
It wasn't the first name.
Ooh, you want to share the first name that you had to scrap?
Do we?
No.
Come on, Dax, you're indie now. It doesn't matter. Just say the name of the game.
Well, Adam always called it Bark. And so all of the original
code name. That was never going to be the game.
Well, we had to call it something, and that's what you were like. This is what the game is. It's called Bark. What?
Bach is in the composer?
No,
as in the thing you find on the tree.
Okay, gotcha. All right, that's an interesting name. It's a bold one. It's like Anthem, just one clean word,
The whole point of a code name is you pick one that can never stick. So you're forced to change it.
Right, smart.
Yeah.
So with this process, iterating on the game with the fans and stuff, what's been the most surprising part of the process? What have they gravitated towards you didn't expect? Stuff like that.
I think the most surprising part for me has been the kind of the passion and the dedication of some of the fans. We had one guy, amazing guy, who in the first 3 months of early access had played 1,500 hours of the game.
Oh my god!
We were like, "Is that 3 months?" And we worked out that was about 1/3 of all the hours within 3 months.
Wow!
And he'd gone around and mapped the whole world. Tons of great feedback, and we've got players who put in sort of 400, 500 hours. But I think no anyone's quite approached him yet.
Yeah.
So was he one of the people that you called up just to be like, hey, I don't know if you're capable of talking because you're so invested in this game, but could you please let us pick your brain for a bit?
Yeah.
No, I didn't actually chat with him. That was a while ago now.
Yeah. He sort of dips in and out of the community now, and it's like, oh my god, he's in. Like he's some sort of legend.
Yeah. So Adam, you seem like a guy who likes, passionate about game design, no doubt about it. Seems like you had the vision in your mind. Have you had to bend it because of community feedback, or is it just? Oh yeah, is this core idea?
The kind of the high concept hasn't really changed since the initial design, but almost every detail, all the systems, all the little the way stuff works, the way we describe stuff, the way the survival elements work, a lot of that has changed so much since the initial design. I think the concept has really stuck. But yeah, we've changed so much, and it's all been based on community feedback through Steam and through Discord. It's something, again, it's the process is very similar to how we work in AAA games. Like, unless you're Ubisoft, the design changes a lot over the project. In all the projects I've worked on, you kind of have a high concept, but stuff we just iterate and change stuff based on feedback from the team. I know if you're in one of these big sort of multi-studio teams, you can't do that, but that's kind of the environment that I've worked in. It's been very, very iterative, where it's very similar. Other than we're not talking directly to the fans, we change the game, we play it, we change it every week. So the real thing is just to hone down on what's important and never get sort of precious about your own designs or individual elements. Everything is kind of up for grabs.
Yeah, it's going to be easier to not get precious about stuff when you have data coming in, right? When you can track the analytics of like, God, I'm really passionate. I think the system works. And it's like, clearly we're looking at the numbers and this is not working, which is something that you can only get so much of from playtesting, right? Like, I don't know, I'd imagine you did a lot of playtesting in your era at Rocksteady.
Yeah, we did tons. And I think, again, the hardest ones are the kind of the not data ones. The hardest ones where you're going, this, according to the data, this is working, and everyone's going, I don't like it.
Right.
It's like, but it works. What are you talking about? So much of it is just making sure, sort of drilling down, because I think the biggest part of a kind of a game design is to try and figure out why people aren't liking it. A lot of people don't come with you saying this is what needs to change. They go, listen, I don't like this. And it's really a case of sort of drilling down, thinking, what is it that doesn't work? What can we change to keep the kind of the vision, but to change it so it doesn't feel frustrating, so it doesn't feel punishing, or too easy or too hard. Yeah.
Dax, in this new era, early access, how do you know when it's ready? When are you ready to ship this thing?
It's really hard to say, because you can polish forever. Every developer knows that you can just polish forever. I think we're getting to the point where we feel like all of the big decisions are made and locked in. All of the medium-sized decisions are the same. We're now kind of tweaking around smaller details. And I'm now in a position, like just today I was looking at the wikis, various wikis that are out there, thinking, okay, we need to do like an official wiki. And just the amount of stuff that can go into the wiki is just insane. And, so I'm just trying to map all of this out. I don't think we can add any more, because for a game that on its face looks quite simple, there's so much going on under the bonnet. And when you have to create a framework for players new and old to engage with that via the community tools that people expect, like, Discord and various other things, like, yeah, it is. I think it's time for us to just let's get it in a box and be happy and proud of the work that's gone into it. Because thinking back over the years and the time that we have been working on it, so much has gone into it, and so much work and love and sweat and tears, that you've got to call it at some point. and I think we're getting close to that.
You gotta call it. And it's
Yeah.
Is that how you feel about it, Adam?
Sounds so professional. No, I think the main thing is just now we're at a stage where we're kind of really happy with the systems and how the game plays. We have just about all the content we originally planned to add, and then some. Actually, we've added extra stuff as we've gone along. So we want to kind of get to the stage where we're saying this is the game. This is our 1.0 release. So we can start adding, because we're working on sort of regular updates. It makes it very hard to localize without having to change stuff all the time. So we want to get to a stage where this is the release. We can start looking at other languages post release and hopefully a couple more for release. And then look at where we want to take it going on from there. So regardless of what we do next, we've kind of got this 1.0 out there that people are playing, people are enjoying, and is a complete package.
Right. So releasing on Steam within the first half of the year, is that a rough ballpark here?
We're aiming for early, hopefully first quarter, sort of springtime.
Awesome. It seems like a game that, just like every other game under the sun at this point, would be great on Switch. Is that something you're all interested in?
Yes, definitely. I mean, we're looking at additional platforms, but that will be kind of post Steam release.
Okay, but you're open to it.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Amazing the number of people who say that. The number of particularly friends who are like, I love playing your game on PC, but I'm not a PC gamer. This game would work perfectly on Switch. So
yes.
we are hearing that loud and clear from lots of different people.
Adam, you in particular, how much time are you putting into this game? Is it tough to peel yourself away?
About 3 years.
Right. But I mean, especially working from home, is it tough to peel away when it's like, on the much smaller end, going independent with MinnMax here as a Patreon, it's like, I've never had a job before where the more I work, there's a clear line to the more successful I can be. And imagine you have that as well, right? Where it's like, okay, you're all on your own now. And so what's to stop you from just pouring in as much time as possible working on this?
Well, I have a partner and 2 kids, so
smart.
They take up some time. But yeah, I mean, I think, particularly at the start, I kind of the times when I wasn't working were fairly blurred. I kind of got more and more disciplined at sort of setting out office hours and trying to keep them as much as possible. It is very tempting just to nip up here and do a bit more work when nothing else is going on, but. Yeah, I think it's quite hard to get that balance, as I'm sure you realise, working from home. I think a lot of people are seeing that at the moment with all the home working coming on for everyone, really. But yeah, I think it's really just trying to strike a balance between family life, social life, and work life. Which, to be honest, I'm not very good at. I never was very good at, even when I wasn't working for myself. But
yeah, I mean, do you look back on?
But we try our best.
Yeah, do you look back on some of those projects? I mean, I remember Arkham Knight in particular. I think it was delayed once or twice. Do you look back on that era and kind of, I don't know, with a different perspective on just the amount that you were working your ass off there?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's it's kind of it feels a bit different with distance from that project, but there was a lot of work on all 3 of the games actually, just to get them out in the time frame. I think, if anything, the middle one, what was it called now? God, City was that.
What was it called?
One of the greatest middle bit of the blur.
City was, I think, the hardest because we didn't delay. We kind of hit that sort of 2-year iteration.
Oh my God,
that was so intense towards the end. But I think everyone was so proud of kind of what we did in those 2 years.
I mean, how many other studios shifted to an open world game within 2 years? That's absurd. You realize that's absurd.
I mean, that was such an amazing project. It all seemed to sort of come together so quickly. And yeah, it was an amazing result at the end that I think we're all extremely proud of.
Yeah. I remember actually E3 2011 when we were showing Arkham City, because the Supergiant guys, Amir and Greg, were showing Bastion on the Warner Brothers stand that year as well. So, we kind of had this big Arkham City kind of, flashy display with loads and loads of units for people to play on and queues out the door. And they were kind of, first game, just sort of getting their feet under the table with showing their first title. And, Bastion, what a sensational game from such a young team. And now, I was talking to Amir just the other day, just emailing him, and we saw him at PAX West. That would have been, before all the lockdown stuff happened. And just how things have turned, like Supergiant are now this proper rock star indie studio. And we're like, hey, remember us, guys? Hey, yeah, we made that Arkham City game. You probably don't remember it. Wow, Hades looks great.
I've been thinking about Arkham Knight a fair bit recently. I think it's come up in an interesting way where people are talking about Cyberpunk being taken off PlayStation stores, and people are trying to think of any comparison. And it's like, well, I guess Arkham Knight was pulled from Steam, not by Valve, right? But Dax, I'm just curious what you thought of.
You are about to take me back to a very dark place.
Let's go back, man. The Dark Knight itself.
Dude. Yeah.
Did you have thoughts on the release of Cyberpunk even, and how it related? Do you feel more connected to just what the developers on the ground went through over there?
My heart aches for what the development team must have gone through in the sort of 2 weeks around launch, because they have been working undoubtedly incredibly long hours. Since 2012 it was announced?
Yeah.
And the thing that would have got them through those late nights and weekends would have been the dream of launch day, the promise of the sense of accomplishment on launch day. And to have that dream actually manifest itself with death threats and chaos and what must have just been an utterly miserable time for them. That's what wounds me the most about this whole thing, is the shattering of that dream that got them to where they, where they got them through the really, really tough times. It's such a shame for so many people, but to release a game that is so clearly not ready for release is such a bad decision. And I really feel for the team who would have suffered the brunt of that call, because it wouldn't have been their call. They would have known the state of it. And I'm sure they would have had some very difficult internal conversations about the developers actually at the coalface doing the work, saying, we have got to find some other solution here, because just putting this out is not the answer.
Yeah. I mean, I think, just recently they released a video management did talking about, hey, it was a wrong call. Here's what we were thinking along the way. Can you guys help me? You've shipped so many games here. I'm trying to get a sense of, obviously CD Projekt Red was in the wrong on a lot of fronts for the management perspective here. But isn't there also that angle of, I keep hearing from developers, like, it is amazing how games can come together in the last second. And it feels like some things just lock into place, and then, oh my God, it's actually sturdy and it's shipping and people seem to like it. That's a miracle. How did we pull that together in the last couple of weeks? Probably a lot of crunch, realistically. And then maybe it's just they were pulling from those lessons, and management's like, well, it's always a mess right before launch, so let's run up this mountain, and this time we tripped.
Maybe, maybe they were just paying too much attention to the kind of the next gen versions and weren't looking at PS4 and the other versions that they should have been paying more attention to. Maybe there's a disconnect when you get to that size and scale where QA's voice isn't being heard all the way up the other end of the hierarchy. But yeah, you're right. I mean, games are broken pretty much the whole way through development, and then something magic happens in that sort of third act, that final third, where they do come together. And I think Adam can obviously speak to this more, but just paying as an observer, it seems to be that tough decisions get made and things that aren't working finally get cut because there's no more time to try to get them to work. And that's when things do start to click together. But if your lead QAs are saying to you, this is really badly broken, which is what they would have been saying, to ignore those voices just isn't good.
How much of that, when you say, oh, something magical happens, how much of that is just crunch?
I think a lot of it. Yeah, I mean, it's just really trying to work through everything at the last minute, really sort of prioritizing the bugs that need to be fixed. I mean, with all the best intentions, no game goes out without bugs these days. They're too big in kind of size and scope. And I think it can be, I mean, as I played through Cyberpunk on a good PC, and whilst I noticed issues, I had a great time with it.
Good.
It's kind of, it's easy to be kind of blindsided by the kind of the perfect playthrough, the perfect experience that like this is how good it could be, and then just sort of tune out everyone shouting, but this doesn't work. I mean, I'm not in their situation, so I don't know how it went down. But yeah, I think it's hard for kind of any developer at the end, because you're so focused on kind of getting the game out the door, on fixing those last few issues, that I think you can kind of get sort of tunnel vision into kind of what you're working on, and kind of other stuff just sort of slips past you, even if it is quite obvious.
Yeah. Do you two feel like you lived through a sliver of what Rocksteady is going through with that PC version of Arkham Knight?
Yes.
Dax in the same boat?
The thing for me around the Arkham Knight launch was just how much a bit of bad news can dominate the conversation. And, we knew that the console versions were super strong for Arkham Knight, but when you have a kind of community plan and a marketing campaign and a PR vision and all of that to sort of press go on launch day, but you can't get the conversation onto the things you want to talk about because you're constantly on your back foot, because all anyone wants to talk about is the fact that the PC version isn't what it should be, and there's talk of refunds, and there's talk of it being pulled. Those decisions very quickly get taken out of your hands as a developer. They get made based on business considerations rather than anything else. So yeah, that's why that period was so sort of dark and difficult for me on the kind of marketing and PR and community side, because there was so much that we wanted to talk about, but we just couldn't.
Yeah, and it was just out of your hands. It was just business tech decisions.
Yeah, I think one of the things that has kind of changed, I mean, to a certain extent since Arkham Knight, is the kind of the online, the passion of a lot of these online communities, or the belligerence. I think has kind of grown. I'm not saying it wasn't there 5 years ago, but yeah, kind of in the last 5 years, these communities got bigger, and I think that's one thing we're kind of we're always going to be wary of as we try and grow our community, is trying to keep it sort of super respectful, try and keep people being nice to each other. But it's kind of hard as you're producing these titles that need to sell tens of millions. You need the community to be the net to be as wide as possible. And I think they were in a very hard position because CDPR, because they were getting death threats when they delayed the game, and then death threats when they released the game. And it's like, well, it's kind of, I think I'm not saying they handled it the only way they could have, but right. I think it's a very hard situation these days when you've got such a high profile game and so many people shouting about it online.
Yeah. I'm curious, because you played it, how often you thought about Arkham Knight, playing through that. With like playing it myself, it's like there's so much Arkham Knight in Cyberpunk 2077 with Johnny Silverhand and the Joker. Did you think about the comparison? It's like, oh, not that they ripped it off in any way, but it's like, oh, it's similar vibes, I guess, just having this voice in your head and the character interact with the entire time here.
A little bit. I mean, it wasn't something that kind of really screamed at me. I mean, yeah. I think they kind of did enough with it, made it feel sort of definitely like its own thing. But yeah, I think there are obviously similarities with that kind of voice in your head. There's so many open world games these days. It's very easy to draw comparisons with lots of games. Yeah, I think it's It's not something that really screamed out at me. So
Okay.
There's certain similarities, but I really felt the game sort of stood up on its own merits.
Gotcha. Thinking back to that time I visited the studio, Dax, I lose sleep about how well Sefton Hill dodged the question about the Joker in one of our interviews. And I'm sure it was just, he was just Neo in the Matrix, because very specifically, like, is the Joker in this game? And he said specifically, the Joker is dead. And he goes, dead, 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 dead. And it's like, well, why would anybody ask a follow-up question about that? He is technically correct.
Genius.
Yeah, that was the line, wasn't it? Dead, 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 dead.
Yeah. It's absurd. Just in general, Dax, how the hell did you guys hide Mark Hamill being in that game for so long? It is one of the greatest feats of the industry, I think, to keep that a secret until the game launched, right?
Yeah. I know, for a game that had so much focus on it and so many people kind of curious about it, and it was surprisingly leak free. And when Mark came to do, I think at one point he was wearing a disguise to go in to do voice sessions
as the Joker.
Yeah,
exactly. Like we went to stupid extremes to keep that aspect of it a secret. And even in communications early on, Sefton and I came up with this system called the red list and the green list. And any feature that was on the green list was able to be, given to DC and to Warner and for their marketing and PR teams to build campaign details out of and put on T-shirts and put in strategy guides and all that. And anything that's on the red list didn't even leave Rocksteady. Like it was absolutely on lockdown. And so Sefton would sort of have the final call on which features went on the red list and which features went on the green list. And of course, Joker's presence in the game was top of the red list.
That's amazing.
From day one. And it was just as strict as that. Like everyone on the team knew you cannot let this leak out because it's everything. Like it's the game. It's the trilogy. So everyone on the team took that deadly seriously, and I've got to pay them so much respect for how much gravity that one reveal carried for everyone who knew about it.
It's just amazing. And I think it goes to show just the faith that, Warner Brothers and DC had in Rocksteady that, who knows what the numbers would have been. They would have sold 15% more copies if they could have had Joker in the trailer or something, but to hold that line and not let them be like, well, let's just tease it. Let's cut to black and then have the Joker laugh. I'm sure there were 1,000 of those discussions like just a little bit, please, Rocksteady.
Yeah. Well, when you've got something like the Batmobile in there as well, I mean, there was no shortage of conversation points about the Batmobile, the fact that it's, pursuit mode and battle mode and so many other ways that it changed up the gameplay.
And we also had the Arkham Knight.
Right.
Which kind of hides the other twist. People got people guessing about that one.
Yeah,
not asking other questions.
And there was a lot of you all insisting he's an absolutely new character. We invented him, and it's like, okay, all right, I played that game. I don't know how I feel about that messaging, but the Joker stuff was brilliant.
Yeah.
Do y'all miss Rocksteady?
No, I really miss certain people who were such close friends for such a long time, and as soon as you're not working together, you just don't move in the same circles. And texting each other on Christmas Day and saying, "Oh, we've never caught up this year, but next year we're all going to get together again," and we just never do. And it's just the reality of life. I think you get forced into the same four walls as a whole group of really talented people for a long time, and you forge really, really strong friendships. So I don't think it would have mattered what we were working on. There's just some really super talented, super friendly people at that team that I really miss.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say the same thing. It's really the people there that we work with. As Stack said, there are some amazingly talented people, and kind of working them was fun, and it was also a massive learning experience. Sort of getting learning from people every day. Yeah,
I can't imagine spending so much time there. So, tough one, but last year there were reports of sexism, some pretty rough stories coming out of Rocksteady. I'm just curious, with you two in particular, what were your gut reactions? Did you reflect on studio culture and Rocksteady in a different way? Did it change your perspective on things? Just what was your gut reaction to the stories coming out last year?
I was pretty surprised by that. The stories and we kind of, I certainly did, read and followed as much of that as was available in the public domain. And it didn't look like the studio that I knew. It didn't remind me of the studio that I was part of for so long. So it was really, really difficult to read. Really, it was really hard hitting. But it didn't resonate with me as a reminder of the time that I was there. Like I said, it felt like a different studio.
And you think it's just a matter of perspective, though, of just like, from my point of view, I'm not seeing these deep problems within the studio?
Potentially, but I think if those problems were live problems at the time that I was there, I think I would have had some sense that those sort of grievances were being raised and those issues were going on, and I just never did. So I'm happy to be to have been part of a studio that I think had a very, very strong culture. And if I was just blind to those things, then that's on me. I was always of the opinion that Rocksteady had, a very caring and a very nurturing culture right across the board. So, yeah, that was the biggest impact for me. I was really surprised to read those things because it didn't remind me of the studio that I was part of.
Yeah, I think that's kind of a lesson a lot of folks in the industry had last year is, I think we're blind to a lot of things that we need to look at from a new perspective, right?
Yeah. And empathy is the key to all of that. You've got to be able to put yourself in the position of other people and not just see the world as you know it with the biases and the privileges that you yourself carry, but really thinking about what is it to live someone else's life. And, every day, you kind of get your eyes opened a bit more to the way that other people live and genuinely forcing yourself to empathize, I think means trying to put yourself in their shoes and live their life as best you can to understand the challenges that they face and the biases that they need to fight against. And having an understanding of it is the first step in developing that level of empathy that we all need to have, because you just can't live like so shuttered and blinded in the way that I think for a long time, particularly in games development, there was no consideration given to female character design being busty and deliberately sexualized and objectified. You just cannot do that anymore, and for very good reason.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes it just in my life, visiting so many studios, I think last year it really was one of those moments of just going through the Rolodex in my mind of like, oh yeah, that sucked. Oh yeah, that sucked when the developer said that. Oh yeah, that kind of culture and kind of vibe, that sucked a little bit. It's just like, it's nice to have that moment of reflection and just realize like, oh, this is a big turning point in the industry for the better.
Yeah. I think that's what we've got to look out for is kind of just seeing things changing for the better. I think that's got to be the outcome from all these stories, from seeing people being held to account, and also see the culture, the way women and minorities are treated, just to make sure that we're kind of constantly pushing that as far as we can go. And I think that's one thing we've kind of been very very, very aware of on Trials of Fire is also making sure that all the we have a great sort of diversity of characters, male and female. We're not in any way sexualized. female characters, and we're really looking to make sure that we can try and sort of represent the characters that people want to play.
Yeah. Oh, that's nice, for sure. I'd imagine your community, it's nice to have that feedback as well to help shape things even further. Like, oh, we didn't think of this angle. I don't know how many specific examples you'd have, with Trials of Fire, but it's nice just to have that open line of communication for those blind spots, just on the game itself, for sure.
Yeah.
Hey, Dex, marketing an indie game like this, it's got to be night and day different. I want to know what it's like to shift your expertise from marketing AAA games to an indie game. Like, what's the most surprising thing about that transition?
Promoting a game that isn't called Batman Arkham something.
Although maybe that name wasn't taken.
Batman in it.
Batman's Trials of Fire is pretty sweet.
I thought you said Trouser Fire there for a second. Batman Trouser Fire. Night and day is absolutely the way that it is, because you are starting from nothing. A startup studio with a new original IP. Even though we have careers, it's amazing how little anyone cares about that. And we sort of naively thought, we're the Rocksteady guys, we're the Batman guys. People are going to want to know what we're doing now, and nobody does. Based off the Rocksteady Batman connection, all they care about is, okay, what are you working on, and is it any good? Should I pay attention to it? So getting people's attention, whether you're ex-AAA industry vet versus straight out of college, first game in the industry at all as a developer, the challenges are the same. And I think that's good news for the industry, that you can't ride on previous accolades. You have to be as good as you've just gone all green. Ben.
Yeah, you've gone completely green.
Oh, weird. It looks fine on my end. Sorry for the...
All right. Ignore it then.
All right, good.
You're only as good as your last game, and this is something that has really become very clear to me, that you've got to put in the hard yards to get people's attention, to build a community, to treat people well, and to earn their respect with the quality of content that we put out.
Yeah. How much are you planning on leading into Rocksteady, or have you leaned into Rocksteady? I mean, are you thinking of just positioning that way? Like, hey, if you like Batman, who's more tactical than Batman? And if you like tactics, then check out a tactical RPG here.
Well, if Mark Hamill was returning my call, then maybe we could. But no, he's not interested.
Ugh.
No. I think it's like a little aside, like it's a little footnote.
Right.
These guys worked on all the Arkham games, but Trials of Fire has to stand on its own 2 feet and its own merits.
I think the kind of channels you use to market as well are so different. Because in Arkham, it was all about the big events, the big trailer drops. Whereas with Trials of Fire, it's a lot of legwork, a lot of little stuff, streamers, community, Discord. So really trying to engage people. We don't just sort of throw content out at them. We've got to engage with content creators and really get them on board with the game.
Yeah. Well, hey, if people are curious to learn more about Trials of Fire, where should they go?
They should come and see us on Steam. So Trials of Fire is live on Steam. We're in early access, coming out shortly. And join us on Discord. So there is an invite to our Discord server on our Twitter page, which is at WhatBoyGames, and also on the Steam page.
Awesome. Well, hey, congratulations to you two. Going indie. It's going well. You're still feeling good about the whole adventure here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. So far, so good.
I mean, in an era this bizarre, hats off to y'all for finishing the game, for at least nearing the finish line. Even that is an accomplishment. And I'm looking forward to checking out the 1.0 version here.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Cool. Thanks so much for your time. Appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching or listening to this interview from MinnMax. You can check out our other interviews on the YouTube channel if you want to learn more about other games or other developers, other people, fun stuff like that. Thanks so much, everybody. Bye. MinnMax is a Patreon about games, friends, and getting better. The deepest dive is the best, most thorough discussions about games on the internet. Prove us wrong, please. The MinnMax Show podcast airs every Thursday. Patreon supporters vote on what we stream every single week, and a whole lot more. Give us a shot, try subscribing to the YouTube channel, and we hope we can win you over.